way too big. The files are, like I said, the video files are literally nine gigs of a lecture. Yeah, so I have no choice but to record them and then download them and convert them. So I have to compress them and then put them on YouTube. So, all right, so blood plasma, right? So just to review, because we got cut off, now we're recording again. Cardiovascular system, closed tube system, contains transport medium in it. That transport medium is blood plasma. That blood plasma consists of, what does blood plasma consist of, guys? Consists of water, yes, plus electrolytes. Well, that's why you need to familiarize yourself with blood chemistry. All right? So what's the main extracellular cation? What's the body's main extracellular cation? Sodium. Absolutely. There you go. Sodium. Larger concentration outside than inside the cell. Doesn't mean that there's not some inside the cell. But remember what muscle does. Hey, come on in, sodium. Come on in. Opens the door. Sodium's higher concentration outside than inside the cell, diffuses down its concentration gradient. Everyone agree? Through what? Facilitated diffusion. Yes? It's too much sodium came in. I want to kick it back out. Sodium, potassium, ATP, is pump. Kick it back out. Guys, that hasn't changed. Do you understand? The only difference is now we're not dealing with skeletal muscle or nerve. We're going to be starting talking about cardiac muscle and smooth muscle. And then we're going to be talking about, smooth muscle of the digestive tract, smooth muscle of the respiratory tract. You understand? Because cardiac muscle is only found where? At the heart. If it's found anywhere else, it's ectopic cardiac muscle. Do you understand? And it's probably tumors. Because it doesn't belong anywhere else but at the heart. But we started with a simple tube, didn't we? That simple tube starts with a simple squamous epithelium and a basement membrane. That tube has a simple squamous epithelium and a basement membrane. And then as we become more complex and we decide, this is going to be the blood vessels, then, okay, let's put some smooth muscle in that wall. Everybody understand? Guys, all of this whole thing, hold on, I'm trying to find the right word. Derived from mesoderm. You hear me? What is the one thing that is in blood that is not derived from mesoderm? Anybody know? The cells themselves. Because I've said everything about the tube and how we developed the tube and what the tube is transporting, yes? But separate of this fluid, you're transporting cells. And those cells are not derived from the mesoderm. Did everybody hear me? They're derived from the yolk sac. Yolk sac, Professor Piedman, look at this. Those of you who have me for 2085, remember that we said that the red blood cells, white blood cells, and megakaryocytes that give rise to platelets are also in blood plasma. Let's add that. Platelets. So we have blood plasma, we have water, electrolytes, sodium. What's the most common extracellular anion? Anyone? Chloride. What's the most common intracellular cation? Potassium. Let's add that up there. Because if I got to put it in the cell, you better believe it better be in the blood plasma. Does that make sense? Higher concentration inside the cell than outside the cell, but it doesn't mean it's not there. Yes? What's the most common intracellular anion? Phosphate. Add it up there. Now, and which one are we forgetting? The one that's required for exocytosis by all and any cells. Calcium. Guys, are you getting a picture? That's what the blood plasma is for. Separately, the blood plasma is the highway by which red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets go where they need to go. And other cells. Make sense? Yeah. Okay, so blood plasma's got water, it's got electrolytes, it's got all those ions that we talked about, and some more. It's got platelets. If I've got platelets, what else do I need? Anybody? Anybody read ahead? Anybody read the chapter before coming to class?
I read by chapter 17.
Okay, so what do platelets need? What do platelets need to be able to plug the hole? What do they need? Oh, got you guys. Coagulation factors. Also known as the coagulation cascade. What do you mean by cascade? Anyone? Let me take a shot. Roll it right over there. What do I mean by cascade? What do I mean by cascade? You activate one, that one activates the next. Sort of like that renin-angiotensin-aldosterone pathway, yeah? You get renin released by the cells of the JGA in the kidney. We'll talk about that when we get to kidney, don't worry. Although I know it was on the test, a little bit of it. We'll talk about it more in detail. But the renin gets released when there's low blood pressure, when the kidney feels like it's not getting its 25% of cardiac output. Did everybody hear me? Cardiovascular system, what it kicks out, what the heart kicks out, 25% of the volume that comes out of the heart every time it beats, guys, is required to flow to the kidneys. Did you hear me? That is one of the main jobs of the cardiovascular system, separate of supplying blood, all right, to the brain. And it's got to supply itself with blood, the heart itself. It's got to supply the lungs with blood. And then the rest of all the other tissues in the body. Guys, you understand me? So this is quite a tree, quite a system of roots. You get me? But it all started with a simple, closed tube system with what? Lined with simple squamous epithelium and a basement membrane. Then as we got more complex, we developed blood vessels. Well, what's the difference between an artery and a vein? Anybody know?
Arteries carries oxygenated blood.
Good.
And the veins carries blood that needs to be oxygenated.
That's correct. If you're talking about systemically. If you're talking about, because the lung is situated between right and left side hearts, and we have really we have two functional heart pumps, the right pump and the left pump. And between the right pump and the left pump are both lungs. So when the right heart kicks out blood, it's deoxygenated, but it's traveling through arteries to the lungs to be oxygenated. So that we call pulmonary circuit. So when you're talking about systemic circuit, you are correct. Arteries are taking oxygenated blood to the organs. And veins are bringing that deoxygenated blood back to the heart. But once it gets back to the heart, the right side heart is going to kick that deoxygenated blood out at a certain pressure to feed it to the lungs so the lungs can oxygenate it. What they're doing along the way is they're picking up nutrients from liver, because the liver is situated in a way where anything that you eat and gets absorbed by your small intestine goes to liver first. Then the liver dumps it into the venous side of the blood, just below the entryway of the right atrium of the heart. And then so what's happening? Deoxygenated blood coming back from tissues and systemic circuit will enter to the right side of the heart, above and below. The inferior vena cava is going to pick up nutrient-rich deoxygenated blood from liver and mix it with the deoxygenated blood coming from everywhere in the body. That is also nutrient poor. So perfect, because once we get it to right side heart kicks it back out, lungs put the oxygen into it, gets back to left side heart, squeeze it back out, send it out to everybody. Everybody got me? That's the idea. Any questions so far? This is a basic kind of introduction to cardiovascular.
And then the pulmonary artery.
The pulmonary arteries, so the pulmonary veins are draining the lungs of oxygenated blood, oxygen-rich blood that's nutrient-rich, right? Because the nutrients came in on the right side, came out of the right side heart, went to the lung then oxygenates it. Now your veins, your pulmonary veins, are going to bring it back into the left side atria. Left side atria, then left ventricle squeezes, kicks it up the aorta. Feeds everybody. Perfect. We got nutrients and we got oxygen together. That's what we want. See? Guys, if something's wrong with my liver, what's happening? If my liver is swollen for whatever reason, if my liver has excess connective tissue for whatever reason, right? Then the amount of nutrient-rich blood that's going to re-enter into the cardiovascular system is going to be reduced. And thereby, you're starving your cells. You understand? So anything that would damage the liver, that means excess deposition of fats, scar tissue, chronic inflammation due to hepatitis, and there's other stuff. There's other things that infect the liver, right? You go to remote areas of the world, you find out. All right, it's not just hepatitis that'll swell your liver. There are other things. There's flukes that you can get from swimming in the water. They get into the GI tract. They're very small. They're worms basically. The other day I'm rereading about these trichinosis, which is this encysted worm. It comes from the GI, and then it enters into the bloodstream and has this really complex cycle, but ultimately it sits into the muscle. And so when someone eats the meat of an animal like a pig that has this disease, you get it and it absorbs into the GI because the meat is not cooked properly. You eat it uncooked, or it's not cooked properly, and then you eat it, and then this stuff gets into the GI system and goes into your muscle, and it creates cysts. It's the actual worm snaked up in a cyst in your muscle. All right, very dangerous stuff. So anyway, you see, we're exposed to all these things on Earth. Yes, does everyone agree? We're exposed to viruses, bacteria, funguses, unicellular organisms like amoebas, right? And Plasmodium vivax that creates malaria. Anyone follow? Or causes malaria, right? So all these different things that we're exposed to. Well, Professor Pete, wait up. You're in microbiome. We're not in microbiome class. This is anatomy and physiology. Oh, but wait. Blood plasma carries IgG and IgM, which are antibodies engineered against foreign objects, guys. So, so that blood plasma, it's not just fluid, it's not just salts. Oh, what did I forget? Oh, shame on me. What else is soluble in blood plasma, in that water and those electrolytes? What else am I needing? Anybody? Glucose. They have that glucose on board. You got the thyroid on board? You got the thyroid hormone on board? You got the mitochondria on board? Okay, where's the sugar? You got me? Now, there is some oxygen in this blood plasma. There's some carbon dioxide in this blood plasma. Do you understand, guys? There is soluble gas in blood plasma. It's what we call the arterial blood vessels. You understand? And this is why you know if someone comes into the ER, one of the first things you do. Start an IV, please, and a venous puncture, thank you very much. Make sense? You do the same thing. Right? You set up the little bore needle, right? You insert it into the vein side, right? You draw what you need off, right? Then you come over with the bag and then you're done. Saline solution. You don't stick two places, yeah? I've had nurses do this. Stick me in one spot and then start my IV in another spot. Really? Oh, because you need practice. Not on me, you don't. Not unless you ask me first. Then I give you permission. Be like, all right, go ahead. I'll let you be my pincushion for a few times. Because I understand everybody's going to learn. So blood plasma, guys, is not just water. It's got electrolytes. It's got glucose. It's got platelets. If it's got platelets, you better believe it's got to have coagulation factors. Guys, this is where I tell you, hey, I can make blood plasma go from liquid state to solid state in a matter of specialized form of connective tissue. I'm not talking about the red blood cells. The professor was thinking red blood cells. He wasn't thinking about the fluid that the red blood cells travel through. The highway is a fluid dynamic highway. And in that, this is where physics and anatomy come together. It's called hydrodynamics. Because then, if I want fluid to move through a tube, then the pressure at one end has to be greater than the pressure at the other end for it to move in that fashion. So this guy must be greater than this guy's pressure. Everyone agree? Guys, this is basic fluid hydrodynamics. It's physics. What can we say about the cardiovascular system? Is it like a garden hose? Or is it like a lead pipe? What you want? You want a lead pipe or a garden hose? Or what about those new hoses? You know, new hoses, you fill it up and they swell up and they get long, and then when you take the water away, they shrink down. What you think? You want a dynamic or do you want it rigid? Dynamic. Does everyone agree? You want it dynamic. Why do you want it dynamic? Why do you want the tube that the blood is flowing through to be dynamic? Why? Because the heart is pumping. And if I don't, so let's think about this for a moment. It's really basic, guys. If the heart is dynamically pumping, right? So it's squeezing the fluid and it's pushing it out. If it enters into a rigid tube, then you don't go very far down that tube and the pressure just drops. You got me? But now watch. If it's dynamic, when the heart generates its pressure, then when the blood vessel senses that pressure, it what? Expands and then snaps back. See that? Guys, that's exactly what the aorta of your heart is doing. The aortic root is the root that is directly connected to your left ventricle. Your left ventricle's job is to feed the systemic circuit. It's to kick blood out everywhere. That blood is all of this plus red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. You got me, guys? Very important. So we can erase platelets from here, right? And we can write it as a separate classification. So we can say cells, blood plasma, and then cells. And in that you have red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets, which are not cells, guys. They're not cells. Did everybody hear me? Platelets are not cells. They're fragments of cells. Now let's deal with that. These fragments of cells, they're fragmented plasma membrane pieces of the megakaryocyte that sits in bone marrow. So if you guys remember, all these cells sit in bone marrow, don't they? Does everyone agree? Yeah, that's why I taught you guys this stuff in bone. So if you had learned bone properly, then you would have known that bone is the house. Bone. Does anyone have a extra one? She needs to redo this. You need to redo it on other different one. Can anyone have an extra one? An answer sheet? Here, take this one. Transfer those answers onto that. Thank you. All right. So you have one. You got to have this pressure for them to move through. But it's not just the fluid that's moving through; it's the cells as well. So this is why the number of cells inside the tube is important. Does everyone agree? Guys, if there's too many cells, same amount of fluid, too many cells, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? If my blood is flowing, right, and I start putting more cells into the system, and the fluid stays the same, what's going to happen? The blood's going to get thicker. That's an increase in viscosity. Did everybody hear me? An increase in viscosity. Well, an increase in viscosity increases friction. See that? That's not good. And ultimately, if the viscosity is too thick, then the blood slows down. Anytime there's stasis of blood, you run the risk of blood coagulating. Does everybody hear me? So I'm going to write it up here in a different color. Stasis. Stasis of blood may lead to coagulation. Okay? Stasis of blood. Anytime you get a decreased movement of blood. So guys, ready? I'm a 65-year-old female. She's getting on a plane. She lives in Miami, Florida. She's going to Los Angeles. She gets on a plane. Flight's what, 6.5 hours, 7 hours? As soon as she gets down to LA, she's rushed off to the hospital. She winds up dying. What happened to her? Coagulation. It's called a deep vein thrombosis because it came on the venous side because she's got these really poor circulation. She was, a typical Hispanic female, right? During that era, it's not normal for you to take care of yourself and do exercise regularly. That's not feminine. It's not feminine. Thank God I was not female. Because if I was a female, I would have been more of a hellraiser than I was as a boy. Because I'd be sticking my finger up at the system all the time. I thought about this. Man, I'd be a real rough female. I'd be one of those real mean females. You know what I mean? Because if I had to live with all this nonsense that guys do, I'd be cracking skulls with what I'd be doing regularly, man. Right? So, you do not. So what happens? Lack of exercise, poor eating habit, social norms, all this plays a role. She's got this deep vein thrombosis because she's got these real thick, right, varicose veins, and those tortuosities on the superficial veins can affect the deeper veins of the leg. You hear me? So when she sits around, 60% of your blood normally sits in the venous side. 60% of your blood